So our today's topic is processing and principles of food processing. So what are different principles that are used in food processing units or food processing industries? So first is about introduction of fruits and vegetable processing units. So in which our first point is the fruits and vegetables are comparative higher value than cereals and they are more perishable. So as we studied in the previous slide, or as we know already, that the fruits and vegetable have more nutrition value than cereals, and the fruits and vegetables are more perishable nature than grains, than cereals, than pulses, etc. Because they have very lot of water content, and uh, they start decaying very in a very short time. So that's why vegetables and fruits are more perishable nature than cereals and other crops. Losses in the fruits and vegetables are high, and chances to reduce the waste and enhancing the employability through post-harvest processing are more. So, as we know, that because of the perishable nature of fruits and vegetables, so their chances of wastage are higher than other crops. So, it is very important for their processing to further processing, and also it is very important to enhance the employability through post-harvest processing. Next is the processing includes pre-processing of fruits and vegetables before these are fit to final conversion into processed foods. So it includes pre-processing of foods. The food preservation and processing industries has now become of a necessity than being a luxury. So in later time, all the population think that the processing units or processing industries or processed foods only consumed by very rich people, or it is a form of luxury living. But nowadays it become a necessity. So today, in today's world, food preservation and processing industries become a necessity of everyone. Next is it has an important role in conservation and better utilization of fruits and vegetables. So to reduce the wastage of fruits and vegetable by transporting through storage, etc. So it is a better way to process them into different forms. For example, from fruits and vegetable, we process fruits and vegetable and convert them into various kinds of jams, jellies, pickles, chutneys, juices, etc. Or also we can preserve veggies in the form of canned food and ready to serve food. So in this way we can reduce the wastage of fruits and vegetables. In order to avoid the glut and utilize the surplus during the season, it is necessary to employ modern methods to extend storage life for better distribution, and also processing techniques to preserve them for utilization in the off-season on both large scale and small scale. So, as we know, in the glut, in the peak season of any fruit and vegetable, there may be a glut of that vegetable or fruit. So in that case, in the market, their demand is low and their supply is high. That's why their prices become decreases. So in this way, farmer on less profit. So to avoid all this situation, to avoid all the situation, the main important process is to process the food or employ modern methods of processing. So in this way, farmer earn more profit, or we also avoid wastage in the glut season, or we also maintain the price of that price of that fruits and vegetables. So it is very necessary to utilize the surplus during the season, because in the surplus season, as we know, they are perishable in nature. They decay, decompose very. They start decaying very easily or in a very short span. So we cannot store as it is for a longer time. So for the storage of fruits and vegetables, first we have to do we have to process those vegetables and fruits. So food processing therefore refers to the application of techniques to foods in a systematic manner for preventing losses through preservation, through processing, packaging, storage, and distribution. Ultimately, to ensure greater availability of a wide variety of foods, which would help to improve the food intake and nutritional standard during the periods of low availability. So with the help of food processing units or food processing industries, we can available all types of fruits and vegetables their uh, in their low availability season, or in their ऑफ सीजन, वी कैन से दैट ऑफ सीजन. सो हम सभी वेजिटेबल्स एंड फ्रूट्स को अगर प्रोसेस कर लें तो हम उनको ऑफ सीजन में भी अवेलेबल करा सकते हैं. ठीक है. So it also help to improve the food intake and the nutritional standards of the fruits and vegetables, and it also reduce the losses during the preservation, processing, packaging, storage, distribution. So in this way, we can say that food processing industries or food processing units are very helpful for us. Uh, it, its main purpose to reduce the wastage of fruits and vegetables in their glut season or in their peak season, and it also maintain the price of that fruit and vegetable in the market, and it also help the farmer to earn more and more profit in off season as well as in peak season. Next is the main objective of fruits and vegetable processing is to supply wholesome, safe, nutritious, and acceptable food to consumers throughout the year. So, the main objective of processing units or processing industries is to supply wholesome, safe, and nutritional food, and that food is acceptable or available to consumer throughout this year, the season, whether there is an off season of that fruit and vegetable, or there is an on season of fruit and vegetable. Next is the pre-requisites of processing units. Pre-requisites of preservation are cleaning, grading, and sorting as prematurity. So first is cleaning. So cleaning, how to preserve food. So there are some procedures, you can say that there are some processes or some methods to preserve food. So first is cleaning. So it is a unit operation in which contaminating material are removed from the food material and separated to leave the surface of the food in a suitable condition for further processing. So from the word cleaning, we can understand to clean the food or vegetable, and to remove the unwanted and undesirable material from the food, from the fruits and from the vegetables. That material may be soil, or maybe a dust, or maybe different kinds of insecticides and pesticides that laying on the upper layer of the fruits and vegetables. So cleaning is a unit operation that remove the contaminating material from the food material, and also separate the cleaned uh, fruit fruits and vegetable in a suitable condition for further processing. So in vegetable processing, blanching also helps to clean the food. So what is blanching? So in blanching, we boil vegetables for a few seconds to a minute in a water. So this is called blanching. So we blanched uh, vegetables to clean the product or clean the dust available on them. In addition, early removal of small quantities of food contaminated by microorganisms prevents the subsequent losses of the remaining bulk by microbial growth during storage or delays before processing. So it also helps to remove the microorganisms uh, and help to store the fruits and vegetables for a longer period of time and before processing. So next the cleaning is divided into two categories. First is wet cleaning, second is dry cleaning. So first category of cleaning is wet cleaning. So in wet cleaning, it is more effective than dry method for removing soil from root crops or dust and pesticide residues from soft fruits and vegetables. So, wet cleaning is more suitable than dry cleaning because it helps to removing soil from the root crops, dust, pesticide residues from the soft fruits and vegetables very easily and very efficiently. It is also dustless and cause less damage to fruits than dry method. So wet cleaning has a one more advantage over a dry method that it also cause less damage of food during its cleaning during its dustless cleaning. So this is dry cleaning. Next, first is wet cleaning. Next is dry cleaning. So in dry cleaning, the procedure are used for products that are smaller, that have mechanical strength and possess lower moisture content. So in dry cleaning, only those products are cleaned that are smaller in size or that have a great mechanical strength and that possess lower moisture content. For example, grains and nuts. So after cleaning, the surface are dry to aid preservation for further drying. The main groups of equipment used for dry cleaning are air classifiers, magnetic separators, separated waste and screening of food. So there are three equipments that we are used in dry cleanings of various kinds of food products. So this is all about cleaning. So our first method to clean, or we can say the first step in the preservation of foods and vegetables are cleaning. So again, cleaning is divided into two categories: wet cleaning and dry cleaning. So wet cleaning is more efficient than dry cleaning over various and also wet cleaning various advantages over dry cleaning. Next is removing contaminants and foreign bodies. So physical separation of the contaminants from food is possible when the food has regular and well-defined shape. For example, ground foods are separated from contaminants by exploiting their ability to roll down in inclined upward moving conveyor belt. So there is a machine in which a conveyor belt is lying. So uh, when we uh, when we pour different fruits and vegetable in that uh, machine, they go through that conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt rolls down the food products upward and downward. So in this way, their soil, their contaminant material, and the soil attached on the root crops, they are separated easily. So for this purpose, the food or the product should be well defined, have well defined regular shape. For example, round foods are separate. For example, potato can be cleaned with the help of conveyor belt or with the help of roller down incline machine. So this is removing contaminants and foreign bodies. Second procedure or second step is after cleaning is sorting. So after cleaning the produce, the next step is sorting. So what is sorting? Sorting is the separation of food into categories on the basis of a measurable physical property. So in sorting, we separate the food products into different categories on the basis of their physical properties. Like cleaning, sorting should be employed as early as possible to ensure uniform product for subsequent processing. So, as like cleaning, sorting is also a very important process that should be employed at an early stage uh, as as early as possible to ensure uniform product for subsequent processing. So the four main physical properties used to sort foods are size, shape, weight, and color. So in sorting, we can separate foods on the basis of their size, on the basis of their shape, on the basis of their weight and color. Next is shape and size sorting. So under sorting, first category is shape and size sorting. So the particle size distribution of a material is expressed as either the mass fraction of material that is retained on each sieve and cumulative percentage of material retained. Size sorting is the separation of solids into two or more fractions on the basis of different sizes. So shape and size sorting. So it is mostly done in grain foods. Because they have a small in size, so we can see uh, all the grains through through a different shape or different sizes of sieve. So in this way, we can separate grain particles from other contaminated material or other unwanted and undesirable material that are present in produce. Next is color sorting. So small particulate food may be automatically sorted at high rates using microprocessor controlled color sorting equipment. So in color sorting, we use microprocessor controlled color sorting equipment that automatically sorted foods according to their color. So particles are fed into shoot one at a time. Uh, the angle, shape, and the lining material of shoot are altered to control the velocity of piece as they pass a photodetector. The photodetector measures the reflected color of each piece and compare it with preset standard, and defective food are separated by sort blast of compressed air. So in which microprocessor equipment is used. All the food particles are fed into shoot only at one time. So shoot uh, or should all cover the angle, shape, and lining material, and it also altered the control velocity of a piece, and that that reading is passes to photodetector. So, what is the function of photodetector? So, in photodetector, we already entered preset standards. We feed the preset standards, or we already set in preset standards. The food material that is not compatible to preset standards, so that food material is said to be defective food, and they are separated by a short blast compressed air. So this is all about color sorting. Next is weight sorting. Weight sorting is more accurate than other methods and is therefore used for more valuable foods. Aspiration and floating sorting are uses differences in density to sort food and similar in principle and operation to aspiration and floating weight. So in weight sorting, we use aspiration and float cleaning. This method is more accurate than other sorting methods because it provide accurate output, and they are more valuable, used for more valuable foods. So after cleaning uh, and sorting, our third step, or we can say the third procedure, third step in the procedure is grading. So this term is often used interchangeably with sorting, but strictly means the assessment of overall quality of food using the numbers of attributes. So there is a similarity between sorting and grading, but grading is different from sorting because in sorting we separate foods according to their physical properties, but in grading we assess the quality of the food material by using number of attributes. So grading is carried out by machines or operators who are trained to simultaneously assess a number of variables. So grading is only done by various machines and operators that who are already trained to assess the various kinds of variables. So there's a table. This table is about the basic principle of preserving biomaterials and their respective methods are given in the following table. So first column is about principles and second is about method. So first principle is reducing temperature so that deteriorating reaction occurring within the biomaterial are minimized. So first principle is to reducing the temperature of various food materials in order to minimize their biomaterial activities. So for this principle, we use evaporating cool chamber, refrigerate storage, cold storage, or freezing methods. So if we want to reduce the temperature of any food material in order to minimize their biomaterial reactions, so for this we can use evaporating method, we can use cool chamber, refrigerators, cold storage method, or freezing method. Second principle is creation of an environment of gases. Such deteriorating biochemicals reduce their activities. So, for creating an environment for gases, such as to minimize the biochemical activities, for this we can use hermetic storage, controlled storage method, and modified packaging method. Third one is to reduce chemical potential of water or water activity reduction. Uh, for example, for the application of heat and also the addition of solute to so that water is strongly bound. So for this purpose, we use drying method and we use dehydration method, and we also use convective microwave drying and pasteurization method, and also use sterilization and osmo dehydration method. Next is wait a minute, students. So our continue with the fourth principle is production of chemical through fermentation, which will be detrimental to the microbes causing food spoilage. So for this principle, we use pickling control fermentation in aerobic and anaerobic condition. Next principle is innovating methods. So what are there are different methods, innovating methods, that is irradiation, dielectric, infrared, and oblique heating. So these are different principles. We can say that for different purposes, we use different methods of processing, different methods of preserving the food. Next is the methods and principles can further classify based on food preservation. So these methods are control water activity. So to control water activity of the food can be controlled the different methods which are explained here under. So first method to control water activity is evaporation. So in evaporation, the food industry, frequently in a food industry, a raw material or a potential foodstuff contain more water than is required in a final product. When the foodstuff is a liquid, the easiest method of removing water in general is to apply heat to evaporate it. Evaporation is thus a process that is often used by a food technologist. The basic factor that affects the rate of evaporation are rate at which heat can be transferred into the liquid, quantity of heat required to evaporate each kg of water, and maximum allowable temperature of the liquid. So in order to reduce or in order to control the water requirement in the food, we can heat up the food material, so the water present in that food material evaporate by heating. So in this way, the technologists use three factors that affect the evaporation, that is the rate at which heat can be transferred into the liquid, or the at which quantity heat is required for evaporating 1 kg of water from the food material, and the third one is what is the allowable maximum temperature to evaporate the liquid from the food material. Pressure at which evaporation takes place. Fourth factor is what pressure at which evaporation takes place. Next is changes that may occur in the foodstuff during the course of the evaporation process, and what are the different changes occur while we using evaporation process. So this is all about evaporation that control water activities. D is dehydration. So after evaporation, we also use dehydration process. So it is defined as the application of heat under controlled conditions to remove the majority of water normally present in a food by evaporation. The main purpose of dehydration is to extend the shelf life of food by reduction the water activity. So as it is same as the evaporation method, but in dehydration method we heat food material in a controlled condition. ठीक है, so controlled condition में हम उसको heat करते हैं. So its main purpose is to extend the shelf life of food by reducing water activities. C is osmodehydration. So in osmodehydration, the prepared fresh material is soaked in a thick liquid sugar solution and or a strong salt solution, then the material is dry. So during the osmotic treatment, the material loses some of its moisture. The syrup or salt solution has a protective effect on color, flavor, and texture. This protective effect remains throughout the drying process and makes it possible to produce dry product of high quality. So by evaporating or by dehydration method, we can lose some of the nutrients of foods, but in osmodehydration process, we provide high quality dried products that have that save our nutrition value, or that save the nutrition value of food. So in osmodehydration process, we dip or we soak the fruits and vegetables into a strong sugar solution, liquid sugar solution, or a strong salt solution. And after that, the material is dried. So both the syrup and salt solution, they protect, they maintain the color of the food, maintain the flavor of the food, and also maintain the texture of the food. So in this way, we provide highly nutritious food and also highly qualitative food to the consumer. Third one is next is drying. So drying is a process to remove the moisture content from the food material and thereby reduce the water activity and extend the shelf life. So by drying, the main purpose of drying is to remove the moisture from the food, and it also reduces the water activities, and it also extends the shelf life of food. So several types of dryers and drying methods are used at commercial level. So it also depends upon the material, what material we use for drying, and what are its properties, what are its desired physical form and characteristics of a dried product, and what are the operating cost of dryers. For example, sun drying, it is free of cost. Solar drying, atmospheric drying like kiln, tower, cabinet, like tunnel, belt, fluidized bed, puff, foam, and spray. So these type of material we can use in drying process. Next is cold treatment. So first is control of water activity. Second is cold treatment. So cold treatment is the treatment like fermentation, irradiation, dielectric, ohmic, infrared heating, freezing, supercooling, refrigerating, given to the food material for increasing their shelf life. So in cold treatment, we use various methods to increase the shelf life of food material. So in which first one is fermentation. So fermentation during food fermentation, the controlled action of selected microorganisms is used to alter the texture of food, preserve foods by production of acidic or alcoholic, or to produce subtle flavor, aromas, which increase the quality and value of raw material. So in uh, fermentation mostly done in the absence of oxygen. So in this type of method, we use various microorganisms that alter the texture of food, that preserve the food by the production of acids and alcohols, and it also maintains the subtle flavors and aromas that also increase the quality of the raw material and of the food material. So next are the main advantages of fermentation. So the use of mild condition of pH and temperature which maintain nutritional properties and sensory characteristics of food. So in fermentation, so the main advantage of fermentation is it maintains the nutritional property of food and also maintain the sensory characters of food, and it also provide qualitative food. The production of food which have flavor or texture that cannot be achieved by other methods. So, by fermentation, we can produce food having lots of flavor and lots of texture, and that cannot be achieved by other method. So it provides low energy consumption due to mild operating condition, relatively low capital and operating cost, relatively simple technology. So in fermentation, we use very simple technology, and its operating cost is very relatively low than other methods. And it also provides low energy consumption due to mild operating conditions. So these are the main advantages of fermentation. Next are irradiation. So ionizing radiation takes the form of Y rays, gamma rays from the isotopes, or commercially to a lesser extent from X-rays and electrons. So in irradiation, we use various types of rays to preserve the foods. So what are their main advantages? There is little or no heating of the food and therefore negligible change to sensory characteristics. So in irradiation methods, as we know, by heating foods and vegetable, some of their nutritions are lost, or their nutrition value become decreasing. Some of their proteins, vitamins, or their minerals are not maintained by heating. So there is a advantage of irradiation method over various heating methods, because there is very little heating, or there is no heating is used to preserve the food in radiation irradiation method. So in this way, there is negligible change in the sensory characteristics of food. Packaged and frozen foods may be treated. So in irradiation method, we used packaged and frozen material. Fresh food may be preserved in a single operation and without the use of chemical preservation. So in irradiation, we do not use any kind of chemical to preserve the food, and also we can preserve fresh foods in a single operation. Its energy requirement is very low. So change in the nutrition value of food is comparable with the other method of food preservation. Processing is automatically controlled and has low operation cost. So irradiation method also have very low operation cost. So there are lots of advantages of irradiation method. Next is application of irradiation. So where we can use irradiation, we can in the sterilization, in the reduction of pathogen for prolonged or to extend the shelf life or to control the ripening of the food, disinfection, infestations, inhibition of the surprising. So for these purpose, we can use irradiation method. Next is dielectric ohmic and infrared heating. So in dielectric energy, infrared energy are two forms of electromagnetic energy. So the dielectric and infrared and ohmic energies are different types of electromagnetic energies. They are both transmitted as waves, which penetrate food and are then absorbed and converted to heat. So in which different types of rays or waves are that penetrates into the food and that absorb maximum of its water by heating. In contrast, ohmic heating uses the electrical resistance of foods is to directly convert electricity to heat. So, but in ohmic heating method, we use electrical resistance that convert electricity into heat. So the dielectric and ohmic heating are direct method in which heating is generated within the food within the food product, whereas infrared heating is an indirect method that relies on heating that is generated externally, being applied on the surface and food surface of the food and mostly by radiation, but also by convection and to a lesser extent of conduction. So this is all about dielectric, ohmic, and infrared heating. After that, the next method is freezing. So freezing is the reduction in temperature generally by supercooling followed by crystallization of water, nucleation, and finally crystal growth. So in freezing, we store food into at very low temperature or at very supercooled temperature. Uh, After that, the crystals of water are turned in sorry the water content is turned into crystal forms. So methods of quick freezing are freezing by indirect contact with the refrigerant, freezing in a blast of cold air, freezing by direct immersion in a refrigerating medium. So first method of freezing is freezing by indirect contact with refrigerant. So in which food may be frozen by being placed in a contact with a metal surface, which is cooled by refrigerant or packed in a can or cooled by immersion in a refrigerant. Also, food packaged in paper boxes may be also frozen by the contact with the refrigerated metal plates, which may be moving or stationary. So, as we see, there we have a refrigerator in our houses. So it is a basic equipment to preserve the food for a short period of time. So in which the food can be stored or food can be frozen by being or by placed food into a refrigerator or uh, at that time the food come into the contact with metal surface of the refrigerator and it also we can also freeze the packed and canned food in the refrigerator. Next is air blast freezing. So in air blast freezing, to obtain very cold air, a blast of air is directed through refrigerating coil. For greater effect, the cold air blast is confined in an insulated tunnel. The material to be frozen may be placed on a moving belt within variable of movement, concurrent, and air blast. So in air blast, we can use air which is directed through refrigerator coil that is very cool. That coil is produced coolly. So for greater effect, we can use that tunnels are insulated, and we placed food material on that belt, and the air blast placed on the food and freeze the food immediately. Next is freezing by direct immersion. So freezing by direct immersion is in low temperature drying was the beginning of quick freezing. So direct immersion in direct immersion method, freezing by direct immersion method, there is a quick freezing of food products. Since liquids are good heat conductor, a product can be frozen rapidly by direct immersion in low temperature liquid, for example, brine and sugar solution. So in freezing by direct immersion method, we use sugar solution at very low temperature. Next is freezing time. The definition of freezing time is a function of two intensities, that is, when freezing starts or when it stops. So it is very difficult to determine the freezing time. Since freezing will occur at different rates and at different points of various foods, the freezing will be faster at some point on the surface and in the body of a piece of food. There is a point which cools slowest. The highest temperature at which ice crystals have a stable existence in a food material is freezing point. So what is freezing point? It is a point at which ice crystals have a stable existence in a food material. And this signals the start of freezing time. So from the freezing point, when when the highest temperature at which the ice crystals are stable, that point is known to be freezing point. And from the freezing point, we can use a signal to start the freezing time. Because of the nature of material of foods and presence of water soluble constituents, all water does not crystallize at this temperature. This is known as cryoscopy effect. So what is cryoscopy effect? Because there are different freezing points of different food products. So it occurs when the temperature of water is lowered below the freezing point and crystallization does not occur. So in supercooling, it only occurs when the temperature of water is lowered below the freezing point and water is does not convert into crystallization. The supercooling provides the means of determining the exact effect of reduction in temperature relatively to initial freezing point. Next is refrigeration. This is a process by which heat is removed from a confined place and material for a purpose of maintaining a lower temperature. So refrigeration is a process which is used to remove the heat from the confined place and material for the purpose of maintaining a lower temperature. The standard unit of generating heat capacity is 1 ton of refrigeration. This is derived on the basis of removal of latent heat of fusion of 1 ton of water at 2 degree Fahrenheit or 0 degree Celsius to produce 1 ton of ice. So this is all about refrigeration. Next is control of microbial activities. So how to control microbial activities of in the food. So food material can be stored for a longer period. So if we want to store food material for a longer period, so we have to control their microbial activities. So this can be done by pasteurization activities or by sterilization method. So first is pasteurization method. So in pasteurization method, It is a relatively mild heat treatment in which food is heated at food is heated to below 100 degrees Celsius. So in low acidic food, it is used to minimize possible health hazards from pathogenic microorganisms and to extend the shelf life of food for several days. But in acidic food, it is used to extend the shelf life for several months by destruction of spoilage microorganism and or enzymatic activities. So in acidic food, uh, pasteurization uh, helps to heat the food to below 100 degrees Celsius temperature. So the main purpose of pasteurization in acidic food, it controls the pathogenic microorganisms activities, and it also extends the shelf life of food for several years. And if we want to store and want to increase the shelf life for several months, so pasteurization help to disrupt the spoilage microorganism that or the enzymatic activities in the food. Next is heat sterilization. It is the unit operation in which foods are heated at a sufficiently high temperature and for sufficiently long time to destroy microbial and enzyme activity. As a result, sterilized foods have a shelf life in excess of 6 months at ambient. Wait for a minute. So next is heat sterilization. It is the unit operation in which foods are heated at a sufficiently high temperature or for sufficiently long time to destroy microbial enzyme activity. So as we studied in the previous slide, pasteurization. So in pasteurization, we heat the food product at very mild temperature or very short a period of time. But in sterilization, we heat food material at very high temperature at very sufficiently long time. So we can destroy the microbial and enzymatic activities in the food. So as a result, the sterilized food have a shelf life in excess of 6 months at ambient temperature, provided they are uh, aseptically packed after sterilization to avoid post-sterilization contamination. So the shelf life of sterilized food is up to 6 months or more than 6 months. So severe heat treatment of sterilization cause. So as we know, there is a high temperature used for sterilization. So the drawback of using of high temperature because it damages the nutrition value of food, and it can be avoided by development of suitable processing unit. So this is about heat sterilization. So here the topic of principles and various methods of preserving foods are completed. So students, if you have any query, you can ask.